Hi there, magical, sexy people. This is episode 12 of our series, and we are going to deal exclusively with the circle and the characters of the spirit Bartham, with which I have dealt in the last episode regarding the experiment from the Munich manuscript to provide the conjurer with the flying throne. Now, why did I split the two episodes? Because it takes a lot of explanation, and I would have had about 20 minutes worth of video. On a second note, I will be uploading my episodes once every 2 weeks because my workload is extremely high, and my public's interest in my videos is extremely low. So therefore, I would work for 2 or 3 days to take away from my day job only to get 200 views, and that would be extremely frustrating. Nonetheless, I will not stop, and I will continue providing these videos only once every 2 weeks. I would like to mention that my in-depth analysis of these seals and circle is by no means a criticism brought to Dr. Richard Kieckhefer. If someone were to take each and every experiment and treat it as I am treating this experiment of Bartham, it would take a lifetime. So I am not criticizing Dr. Kieckhefer's work because his work is of immense help and he is very thorough. But when it comes to my own purposes, I would like to go more in depth. Now, the circle used in the experiment is wrong. I know. What makes me say it's wrong? Well, the cardinal directions are all over the place, and he simply states that the characters in between the circle and the triangle are just pseudo-Hebrew script, which I believe are not. Now, how do I determine the direction of the script? You will see from my explanation of a phenomenon which I term final condensation, which can be found in many examples of handwriting, but it doesn't have any name. It cannot be looked up in a paleography treatise or a paleography manual, so it's my own observation and my own tool used to identify the direction of the script or of a seal.
This is the circle that is described in this experiment. Richard Kieckhefer describes it fairly well, but when it comes to the characters, he simply dismisses them as pseudo-Hebrew, which I must respectfully disagree. The grand circle has a large triangle inscribed within it, a smaller circle with delimitating corners, inside which 3 circles signify the 3 jars. The outside has the cardinal directions marked somewhat askew: septentrion, north; meridius, south; occidens, west; and oriens, east. The directions are not only askew to provide a direction to each triangle point, but also wrong. On the north-south axis, the west should lie on the left and the east should lie on the right. In the ritual, north is mentioned first as the direction of King Bartham, and in the description of the jars, the preferred order is north, then east, then west. In the rite, however, the north is addressed first, then the west, then the east. We can assume that this order is the preferred one. If we would rearrange the cardinal points, we should have north, south, east, and west, the outer circle and the inner circle, and the tip of the triangle would be oriented north, the direction of King Bartham. The first jar in the north, filled with ash and flour, would belong to Duke Baltim. The second jar in the west, or rather southwest, filled with water and quicklime, would belong to Duke Saltim, and the third jar, with fire and salt, belonging to Duke Galtim, would be placed in the east, or rather southeast. But what of the characters? In the former experiment, dedicated to Barkan, which we can assume is the same as Bartham, he is compelled by a series of characters written from left to right in 2 rows. I suspect in this experiment that the 2 sets of characters make up the seal of Bartham. But how to read them? We can take the view of the reader, in which case this is the first row, followed by the second, or the view of the magister, writing the characters on the ground from inside the triangle, in which case the first seal would be this, and the second this one. Do we have instances of both of these methods being employed? Abundantly. If we were to present examples from printed works like Athanasius Kircher or other manuscripts like Le Vrai Clavicule de Salomon par Almadel, we would be considered fairly unacademical. So we will draw on similar figures on the CLM 849 itself. On folio 37R, we have this wonderful little drawing of the Mirror of Floron, where the names of the ministering spirits of Floron are written on the outer circle in a continual fashion, meant to be read from inside out. On folio 19R, we have a more complex figure, this time of a magical circle meant to be drawn on the earth, that is also inscribed from the center outward. On folio 28R, we see the other approach, the names being oriented in only one direction, and it's meant more to illustrate the position of the names to the reader, not how they should be written or traced on the earth. On folio 4V, the same thing. The name Maralot appears readable to us, but upside down to the operator. But what is the form in which we must regard the characters of Bartham? Comparing them with other seals of Barkan or Varkan yield almost nothing, and it is because they are unique to this experiment that they are important to our research. We do have a clue to the direction of the writing, however. Have you ever wrote a message or a letter on a piece of paper and miscalculated the space of each letter takes up? The first part of the message is always even, yet the more we come towards the end, the less space we find ourselves with, and we have to cram things in. Have you ever made a happy birthday sign that started out big and ran out of space? Comedian John Mullaney actually has a bit about this, a link in the description. To my understanding, there's no name for this phenomenon in paleography, and believe me, I've tried, so I'll call this final condensation. Our characters follow the same lines. One part of the word is further from the circle and one part is closer, even touching the circle. One will not begin writing on the edge itself and finish in plain space, but always start in a neat space and finish with very little space. So the correct direction of the writing, these characters would be right to left, this being the first series and this being the second series. In reconstructing a more logical circle of Bartham, the cardinal directions would be north, south, west, and east. The two circles would be traced at first, then the triangles, beginning in the north, then the pots placed within their places, and the characters written from the point of view of the operator in front of him towards the north on either side of the circle. If you find these videos interesting, please subscribe to my channel, comment or like them, share them on Facebook, feed the homeless, pet a puppy, and consider supporting me on Patreon because I'm using a phone to film this and a regular desk lamp to light my shiny bald head. Special thanks to my patrons. A pleasure making this video for you.
People, thank you so much for your attention. Now remember, this is an academical endeavor and is not meant to be the outlines of a practical thing. Now, of course, if you want to attempt this, you would need a helmet and some warm clothes and, of course, your papers to identify your body in case you run into a helicopter or plane or drone or Elon Musk's satellites. So please be careful and don't believe everything and be safe. Have a great week.